Hello, my name is Elias Jahshan and I'm the editor of This Arab is Queer.
Hello, my name is Oliver and I'm a trans guy who makes videos about LGBTQIA+ people where they get to talk about anything that they want that somehow relates to them being queer. I was recently in London to march in the Trans Pride Parade, and while I was there I also met up with some amazing people. Let's back up a bit to April when I was traveling through Germany, and in Aachen I made a video about Artemis Books, which is a queer bookshop run by Leonie. And there I bought a copy of the book This Arab is Queer. Fast forward again to London, where the editor of that very book, Elias, has agreed to meet up with me.
My name is Elias Jahshan. I am a gay Arab Australian living in London. I was born in Sydney, in Western Sydney, and my mother is Lebanese and my dad's Palestinian. And I've been living in London for 7 years now. And I'm a journalist, writer, editor, and I recently published a book called This Arab is Queer as the editor of that book. It's an anthology of 18 essays, short memoirs on creative nonfiction.
And Elias created this book for some personal reasons.
When I was living in Australia, I was the editor of Star Observer, which is the longest running queer media outlet in Australia. And I was the first person of colour to be editor of that publication because it was established in 1979. So when I was editor of that publication, I just happened to be editor around the time when ISIS was reigning across the Middle East, well, Syria and Iraq specifically. And it was headline after headline of gay men being thrown off rooftops and stuff like that, which was awful. And I'm not saying these stories should not have been reported. I'm glad they were reported, but it's the way these were reported and the lens which they were reported which kind of got to me, because it was just very much painting the community in one particular light rather than going into the nuances of it and stuff like that. And of course, it was impossible to get into the nuances because they weren't getting any Westerners in the area anyway. But it sort of made me realise other stuff as well. It made me realise how me as a gay Arab living in Sydney, which has one of the biggest Lebanese communities, diaspora communities outside of Lebanon, and how I was still fetishised, how I was still otherised, and people would still sort of make assumptions about my life because of the stigma that comes with being gay and Arab. So there was this personal anecdotal thing. And I found when I talked about being Palestinian as well, there was always that insidious expectation to sort of choose to either be a gay and that's it, or Arab and that's it, and not bring them two together. So when I was in queer circles, mainstream queer circles, I was very hard to sort of express my Palestinian side alongside that, because a lot of people didn't want to deal with it. They could not fathom the idea of me being gay and Palestinian at the same time. Whereas in the Arab circles, the homophobia there needs no explaining. Yeah, so it was like that personal stuff.
He got even more reasons once he left Australia.
When I moved to London, I was sort of stepping away from gay media and looking at media in general with a more critical eye. I noticed other things that maybe like, okay, we're not getting the rights. Our stories are not being told the way they deserve to be. A prime example is when Sarah Higazi committed suicide in exile in Canada, the Egyptian queer activist who was arrested in 2018 or 17 from a Mashrut Layla in concert in Cairo, where she raised the rainbow flag, and then the authorities went on a witch hunt. And she was one of 2 people that got arrested, and then she sought asylum in Canada. So then she passed away in 2020, I think, and it was all over the media. The Western media did a fairly good job covering it, but they still didn't really talk much. I personally don't think there was enough there in terms of giving the community a voice to share our stories and to share our grief, giving us the platform to share our stories the way we deserved it. And then look at the Arab media, and they were like, constantly stigmatising, or didn't report on it at all, because they pretended we didn't exist. So that was kind of like a crystallising moment. Also in that same year, 2020 or 2021, for Idaho Day, when the EU, Canadian and UK embassies in Baghdad decided to raise the rainbow flag without consulting with the local queer community. And in doing so, they provoked a wave of homophobia across the country. And today, we're still seeing the Iraqi lawmakers trying to push through a bill to criminalise it with the death penalty. And so while these embassies might say, oh, we were doing it for the community, they just reeked of white saviour complex. They didn't understand the local nuances, the local cultural stuff. So all these things kind of came into, and there were other stuff as well, but they were the 3 main, well, more than 3 main events that led up to it. And it's sort of like, at the start of the pandemic, I was talking about it with my husband, and my husband was like, well, what have you got to lose? Just sit down and write a proposal and go from there. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And I had no social life during the lockdown, so may as well write the proposal. And then for 3 years later, this is where here I am. So
So all of this led to this amazing book edited by Elias.
So This Arabic Queer is a non-fiction anthology. It's 18 different contributors who write short memoirs, essays, and creative non-fiction, and there's one poem in there as well, also non-fiction. And some of the authors come from Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan, Iraq, the UAE, Sudan, Egypt, Syria. Covered a lot of the countries. About 1/3 still live there in the Arab world. Everyone else lives all over the world, like in Europe, North America, or Australia. I guess that's the nature of being part of the Arab diaspora as well, because especially when you're queer, so many of us are forced to leave or have no choice but to leave, or make the difficult decision of having to leave because for our own safety. And some of us, like myself, were born in the diaspora, and I don't have the right of return, obviously, as a Palestinian. And the Lebanese government's never going to give me citizenship through my mother, so because of patriarchal laws. So yeah, it's very complex.
It was important for Elias that the writers got to share whatever they wanted to.
The book isn't just a collection of coming out stories at all. I specifically told the writers I don't want them to pander to what people expect them to write or what people expect them to share or talk about in terms of the whole trauma porn script that we see so often in mainstream media. I'm not saying these trauma porn stories should not be told. If the writer wants to say that, then that's power to them. It's more about the gatekeepers and how they decide what stories to choose. And so the whole purpose of This Arabic Queer was to create our own space, our own ways of telling our stories without anyone interfering, and without any interference from the white gaze. Yeah, with full creativity and a safe space for people to share our stories.
The book has now been out for 1 year and people love it.
This Arabic Queer has been received quite well. I'm really, really stoked and chuffed by how well received it's been. I mean, it's only been out for a year, and it's already been through a couple of reprints, which is amazing. It's available all over the world, not just the UK. And it's been a really nice positive reception amongst the wider Western community readers. But probably my favourite part is just the reception from the Arab community itself. Now, obviously this is just anecdotal. I'm not saying this is the end of homophobia at all, and probably I surround myself with progressive people. So the Arabs who come to me, a lot of them are straight or heterosexual, they say they love the book and they really show support and they show solidarity. And I'm just like, it's really, really nice to see that, because it really does turn on its head that stereotype of every single Arab is out there to get me and kill me, which is not true, because we are a diverse community and with diverse views, and there are progressive people in the Arab communities around the world. And I think the reception I've got from the Arab community, especially straight people, just goes to show that.
Lastly, these are Elias' hopes for the future.
I don't want people to think that this is the definitive collection and that's it. I hope this is the start of something, because there's so many more stories out there that deserve to be in a book like this, but their space just needs to be created for them. And I do hope that more books like this will published, whether in the non-fiction stuff. Because we've had a lot of fiction books about queer Arab stories and stuff, but this is probably the first time we've had a collection of non-fiction writers come together, or non-fiction stories from queer writers come together, and I hope more of that happens.
If you enjoyed watching that video, please like, comment, subscribe and share the video. I really appreciate you showing your love in that way. If you also want to support the channel financially, that's possible via Patreon, but really no pressure. See you next time.